I want you to try something for me. Grab the nearest book. Any book. Doesn't matter if it's a novel, a textbook, something you bought 3 years ago and swore you'd finish. Open it to a random page and read for 4 minutes. No phone, no music. Just you and the page. If you're anything like most people right now, somewhere around minute 2, something strange happens. Your eyes keep moving. They're still tracking left to right, dutifully, obediently. But your brain has quietly stood up and left the room. You get to the bottom of the page and realize you have absolutely no idea what you just read. So you go back, you read it again, and halfway through the second attempt, you feel this little itch, this small, insistent pull toward your pocket. That itch is the whole video. Because here's the thing, nobody tells you, reading isn't a single skill. It's not like riding a bike, where once you've got it forever. Reading is a fragile, unnatural, bolted-together stack of abilities that your brain was never designed to have. We've had eyes for hundreds of millions of years. We've had spoken language for maybe 100,000. We've had writing for about 5,000. That's nothing. Evolutionarily, that's a rounding error, which means there is no reading center in your brain. There's no dedicated module that came pre-installed. What actually happens when you read is that your brain hijacks circuits built for other things. Visual pattern recognition that evolved to spot predators in tall grass, sound processing built for speech, memory systems built for remembering where the good berries were, and duct tapes them together into something that can decode squiggles on a page. Neuroscientists call this the reading circuit, and the crucial thing about it is that it's built, not born. You constructed it, slowly, over years, and anything you build, you can let fall apart. That's what's happening to a lot of people right now, and the frustrating part is that it doesn't feel like decay. It feels like being busy. It feels like being informed. It feels like keeping up. The habits doing the damage are the same habits that make you feel productive and connected and on top of things. So let's go through 5 of them, because I think at least 3 are going to sting a little. The first one is the obvious one, and I promise I'll be quick about it because you already know and you don't need a lecture. It's the scroll. But I want to explain why it does damage, because phone's bad is a useless take, and I refuse to give you a useless take. When you scroll, you are not reading. You're doing something that looks like reading and uses some of the same equipment, but it's a fundamentally different operation. Researchers who track eye movement on screens have found that people don't read web pages in lines. They read them in shapes. There's a well-documented pattern where your eyes sweep across the top, drop down, sweep across a shorter stretch, then plunge straight down the left margin. It looks like the letter F. You are not absorbing sentences. You're harvesting keywords and guessing at the rest. And that's actually a sensible adaptation. There's too much text in the world and most of it is garbage, so your brain built a filter. Fine. The problem is that this skimming mode isn't a hat you put on and take off. It's a groove you wear into the circuit. The more hours you spend in extraction mode, grab the gist, decide in 2 seconds if it's worth anything, move on, the more that becomes your default way of meeting text. Any text, including the text you actually wanted to read deeply. So you sit down with a real book, and your brain does the thing it's been trained to do 6 hours a day. It starts harvesting. It jumps ahead looking for the payoff. It gets impatient with the setup because the setup isn't the point, right? The point is the takeaway. Where's the takeaway? And a novel doesn't have a takeaway in paragraph 1. A dense argument doesn't have a takeaway in paragraph 1. So your brain, finding no reward, starts looking elsewhere. You didn't lose your ability to read. You trained a competing ability so hard that it now wins by default. Which brings me to the second habit, and this is the one that surprises people, because it's not about what you're doing, it's about what's sitting next to you. Your phone doesn't have to buzz to cost you, it doesn't have to light up, it doesn't have to do anything at all. There's a body of research. The most cited version of it came out of the University of Texas, looking at what happens to cognitive performance based purely on where someone's phone is located. Not whether they use it, where it is. In the room, in a bag, face down on the desk, in another room entirely. And the finding was that people performed measurably worse on tasks requiring working memory and sustained attention when the phone was simply visible or within reach, even switched off. Even when participants insisted, genuinely, that it wasn't affecting them at all. Here's my read on why. Your attention isn't a spotlight you point at things. It's more like a security guard with a budget. And a phone within arm's reach isn't neutral furniture. It's a door that might open at any second. Some part of your brain, below the level of anything you'd notice, is standing at that door. Not checking it, just standing there. And that guard is on payroll. He costs you. What he costs you is the deepest layer of attention, the one you need for holding a complex sentence in your head long enough to see what it's actually saying. You can read with a phone next to you. Of course you can. You'll read the words. What you'll lose is the top of your range. It's the difference between running and running while holding a phone call. You'll still get there. You just won't sprint. The fix is stupid, and it works. Put it in another room. Not face down. Not on silent. Another room, with a door between you. People try this and are genuinely unsettled by how much clearer their head gets in 10 minutes, and I think the reason it's unsettling is that it retroactively tells you how foggy the last few years have been. The third habit is the one I feel most conflicted about because I do it too, and honestly it's a little bit defensible. It's speed. Specifically, it's the belief that faster consumption equals more learning. 2 times playback. 3 times if you're a psychopath. Summaries instead of books. The 5-minute version. The key takeaways. The thread that breaks down the entire thing so you don't have to read the entire thing. And look, sometimes that's the right call. Not everything deserves your full attention, and a summary of a mediocre business book is arguably a public service. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But there's a hidden trade you're making, and it's worth seeing clearly. Understanding isn't a file transfer. It's not that information sits over there, and you move it into your head, and now you have it. Understanding is a construction project. Your brain has to take the new thing, hold it up against everything it already knows, find where it fits, notice where it doesn't fit, resolve the conflict, and build a connection. That takes time. It takes, specifically, the small quiet gaps, the pause at the end of a paragraph, the 2 seconds where you stare at the wall, the moment where you go, wait, hang on. Speed eliminates the gaps. That's literally what speed is. And when you eliminate the gaps, you eliminate the construction, and what you're left with is a very convincing feeling of having learned something, with almost nothing underneath it. You've felt this. You watch a 40-minute breakdown of some topic at double speed. You finish it feeling sharp and informed, and then 2 days later somebody asks you about it, and you produce roughly 1 sentence and a vague gesture. The feeling was real. The learning was thin. There's a term for this in cognitive psychology, the fluency illusion. The easier something feels to process, the more confident you become that you've understood it. And the relationship is genuinely backwards. The material that felt smooth and effortless is often the material you retain worst, because effortlessness means your brain never had to do the work that creates a memory. Difficulty isn't a bug in learning. A certain amount of it is the mechanism. So by all means, speed through the filler. But when you hit the thing that actually matters to you, the idea you want to own, the argument you want to be able to defend at dinner, slow down deliberately. Read it at the speed of thinking, not the speed of consuming. 4th habit. This one has nothing to do with screens, and it might be doing more damage than everything above it combined. It's sleep. I know. Everyone says sleep. It's the most boring advice in existence, and I'm sorry. But most people talk about sleep and reading as if the connection is just tired people concentrate worse, which is true, and also massively undersells it. Here's what's actually going on. During sleep, particularly certain phases of it, your brain runs a consolidation process, where the day's experiences get replayed, sorted, and moved from fragile short-term storage into durable long-term memory. It's not passive rest. It's active filing. It's the night shift going through everything you took in and deciding what gets built into the permanent structure. Vocabulary consolidates during sleep. New concepts get integrated with old ones during sleep. That thing where you struggle with an idea, sleep on it, and wake up finding it weirdly obvious? That's not a metaphor. That's the filing system having done its job overnight. So, when you're chronically short on sleep, you're not just reading tired. You're reading into a container with a hole in it. You put in the effort, you do the work, and the work doesn't get saved. Which means you get the exhausting experience of reading a chapter, genuinely understanding it in the moment, and finding a week later that almost nothing stuck, and then concluding you're bad at reading or bad at remembering, when actually you're just running a machine that never gets to complete its maintenance cycle. And there's a second-order effect that's uglier. Sleep-deprived, the first thing to degrade is your capacity to tolerate cognitive effort. So you don't just read worse, you become less willing to read at all. You reach for the thing that requires nothing, which is the feed, which keeps you up, which costs you more sleep. It's a loop, and it's a nasty one, and it disguises itself as a personality trait. You start telling people you're not really a reader anymore. You're not. You're a person with a sleep debt. Fifth habit, and this is the one I'd argue matters most, because it's the one that quietly determines whether the other four ever get fixed. You've stopped reading things that are hard. Not hard as in badly written. Hard as in above you. Hard as in the sentence has 4 clauses and you have to go back to the start to see how it resolves. Hard as in the author assumes you know something you don't. Hard as in you finish a page and the honest assessment is, I got maybe 60% of that. At some point, most of us made a quiet deal with ourselves. Reading should be enjoyable, and enjoyable means smooth. And if a book makes me feel stupid, then the book is bad, or the author is showing off. And either way, I'm allowed to put it down. And that deal feels reasonable. Life is short. There are a lot of books. Why suffer? But there's a cost, and the cost is compounding. Cognitive stamina works like physical stamina. It's built by working slightly beyond comfort, and it decays without load. If every text you meet is frictionless, your capacity for friction shrinks. And it shrinks quietly, so you don't notice the range narrowing until one day you pick up something you'd have handled easily at 19, and it feels like wading through wet cement. And then, because it feels like cement, you conclude you're just not smart enough for it, which is almost never true. What's actually true is that you're out of practice at a specific skill, staying with confusion without fleeing. That skill has a name I like: cognitive patience. The willingness to be lost in a text and keep going anyway. To hold, I don't get this yet, without immediately reaching for something that makes you feel competent again. And I want to be clear about how central this is, because everything else in your intellectual life sits on top of it. Every genuinely worthwhile idea you'll ever encounter will, at some point in the encounter, make you feel stupid. That's not a sign you've hit your ceiling. That's what learning feels like from the inside. If you've trained yourself to bail at that exact moment, you've installed a filter that removes every difficult idea from your life, while letting you feel like you're still reading plenty. So here's what I'd actually do with all of this, and it's less than you'd think. 20 minutes, once a day. Phone in another room, with a door, a physical book, or a proper e-reader with no browser. Something that can't offer you anything except the book. And it should be something a bit above your current comfort level, not punishing. Just genuinely requiring you. You will hate the first 3 days. Around minute 6, you'll feel an almost physical pull toward the door, and you should expect it and let it pass, because it does pass. Somewhere in the second week, something clicks back on. The internal narrator gets quieter. Sentences start opening up instead of sliding past. You'll finish a page and realize you were actually inside it rather than hovering above it. That's not a new ability. That's the old one, coming back, because you started feeding it again. The circuit is still there. It's not gone, it's not damaged, it's not too late, and you're not too far into it. It's just untrained. And the only thing untrained things need is use. 20 minutes. Something hard. Phone in another room. Start tonight.